The galaxy had a reputation for its tidy, orderly civilizations, where every salvage yard was a regulated, highly monitored operation, and every starship that broke down was either recycled in precise, bureaucratic steps or left to drift until it disintegrated in the void. But none of that mattered when humans arrived. To the alien species that watched from orbiting observation stations, the human settlement on Sector 9X appeared less like a colony and more like a festering heap of scrap, metal, and chaotic noise. The aliens had laughed when the first human scouts landed on what was officially the worst salvage yard in the sector. Rusted hulls leaned at impossible angles, engines hung from cranes by fraying cables, and the ground was littered with twisted metal and burnt-out drones. To any rational mind, it was a death trap. To a human, it was an opportunity. Captain Mara Ellis stepped off the shuttle, her boots crunching over metal shards, the sun glinting off the jagged hulls like 1,000 fractured mirrors. Her crew followed, eyes wide, scanning for threats that never came. The silence of the galaxy, punctuated by the groaning of settling metal, was unnerving. "This place is insane," muttered Lieutenant Core, a veteran engineer who had seen more derelicts than he could count. "How do we even start?" Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. She could see the patterns that no alien could recognize, the places where structural integrity had survived, the derelict engines that could be repurposed, the storage bays that still held sealed containers of lost cargo. Where the galaxy saw garbage, she saw a supply chain. The aliens had underestimated humans again. It was a pattern that seemed almost ritualistic. First curiosity, then condescension, then shock. And this salvage yard, a forgotten corner of the sector, was about to be the stage for yet another display of human adaptability. Mara and her team moved with precision, not like scavengers, but like artists, orchestrating chaos into functionality. A rusted freighter lay half-buried under the twisted remains of what had once been a mining barge. The hull was pitted and scarred, but the main drive core was intact. Core's eyes lit up. "This baby still has a quantum flux stabilizer. If we can patch it, just patch it, it'll run better than anything in the local shipping lanes." Mara smiled, and the rest of the crew set to work, welding, jury-rigging, improvising. Every spark that flew in the sunlit yard was a note in a symphony of human ingenuity. Hours passed, or maybe days. It was impossible to tell in the chaotic rhythm of salvage work. The aliens, observing from orbit, noted strange energy surges in the sector, tiny bursts that were inconsistent with any standard power readings. They recorded the anomalies, but no alarm was triggered. After all, the humans were still small, insignificant, and apparently disorganized. But the anomalies were signs of a larger truth. Humanity didn't follow the galaxy's rules. Where the aliens meticulously cataloged, humans experimented. Where they feared instability, humans thrived in it. That derelict freighter, which should have been scrap, now glowed with life, engines humming in a way that made nearby drones back away. It wasn't just functional, it was adapted. Weapon systems, scavenged and rebuilt, lined the decks. Storage bays that once held mining equipment now held compressed energy cells. Every part had a purpose, even if the original designers never intended it. The first test flight was chaotic. Mara took the helm, Core at the engineering console, and the rest of the crew strapped in with nervous energy. The freighter shuddered violently as the engine sparked, almost tearing apart, but didn't. Against all odds, it lifted off, wobbling, then steadied, hovering above the yard like a phoenix rising from the ashes of abandoned technology. The aliens recorded it, their sensors capturing the improbable, and their analysts shook their heads in disbelief. "Impossible," they said. "That vessel should have collapsed." But the humans didn't hear them. They were too busy marveling at their own creation, at the fact that the worst salvage yard in the sector had birthed a functioning, armed, fully operational vessel. If it didn't explode, it worked better than expected. Word spread quickly among the human crews. Other derelicts, once left to rot, became targets for repurposing. Mining barges turned into mobile supply hubs, cargo freighters became makeshift gunships, even small scout vessels were reconstructed into reconnaissance platforms. The yard became a hive of improvisation, a laboratory of ingenuity where the raw materials of failure were transformed into instruments of expansion. Mara watched as humans moved through the yard with calm intensity, turning each wreck into something more than the sum of its broken parts. She noticed that they didn't fear the explosions. They expected them. Each detonation was a lesson, each malfunction a step toward perfection. The aliens had assumed that the human obsession with salvage was a sign of desperation, but they were wrong. It was strategy. Every scrap had a use, every misfit component a potential advantage. A hull panel from one ship became armor plating on another, a quantum drive core from a wreck freighter became the beating heart of a mobile city. The galaxy had standards, and humans didn't care. They were learning faster than the analysts could calculate. By the time the first alien inspection vessel arrived to assess the yard, Mara's fleet was ready, though not in the conventional sense. The ships were patched together from dozens of sources, each one slightly different, each one unpredictable, but collectively, they were formidable. The aliens blinked their multifaceted eyes. They've weaponized scrap? Mara's response was simple. If it moves, it flies. If it fires, it fights. If it survives, it wins. That philosophy guided every decision in the yard. She knew that raw ingenuity could overcome the most advanced technology, that desperation could be converted into innovation, and that the galaxy's reliance on order was humanity's greatest advantage. The salvage yard, which the aliens had dismissed as chaos incarnate, was in fact a proving ground for human creativity. Each day, new ships emerged from the piles, each one more daring than the last. They weren't just reclaiming the past, they were building the future. As dusk fell over the yard, lights flickered on across the hulls and scaffolding. Fires from welding arcs danced against the metal, casting long shadows across the ground. Kor stood beside Mara, wiping soot from his hands. You know, we're probably violating every safety protocol in the galaxy. I'm surprised we haven't... A sudden explosion interrupted him, a minor detonation that sent debris flying. The freighter shuddered, but the crew laughed. Better than expected, Mara said, echoing the unspoken mantra of the yard. The aliens monitoring from orbit would later report the incident as a minor anomaly. They were wrong. It was a demonstration, a warning that humans did not need perfection to be dangerous. By the time the first trade convoys arrived, the yard had already shifted from derelict heap to supply hub. Ships came and went, picking up modified freighters, energy cells, weaponized salvaged materials, and crews eager to explore further sectors. The aliens still underestimated humans, noting the odd configuration of each vessel, the inconsistent design, the haphazard armor plating. Yet the humans kept moving, innovating, testing, and expanding. What the aliens saw as junk, humans saw as potential, and they exploited it with ruthless efficiency. The first skirmish came unexpectedly. A small pirate fleet, convinced the yard would be an easy target, approached with confidence. Mara's ships were scattered, irregular, unevenly armed, but they fought with improvisational brilliance. Traps set among the piles of metal, makeshift drones scavenged from the yard, and unpredictable weaponry turned the ambush into a disaster for the attackers. The aliens, observing from orbit, calculated that the human fleet should have been annihilated. They weren't. The humans adapted in real time, using the environment itself as a weapon. Salvage beams became impromptu grappling hooks. Energy cells were detonated to create shockwaves. Hull panels were dropped like swinging pendulums. By the end, the pirate fleet was in retreat, leaving Mara's crew with scavenged prizes and a growing reputation for deadly resourcefulness. That night, as the yard settled into a tense calm, Mara walked the grounds alone, reflecting on the transformation. The worst salvage yard in the sector had become the backbone of human expansion. It was more than a collection of ships and scrap. It was a philosophy, a living testament to humanity's refusal to be limited by perception, by expectation, by what others deemed possible. Here, in chaos and ruin, humans had forged opportunity, weaponized derelicts, and claimed victory in a galaxy that had dismissed them. The aliens would learn, eventually, but for now, Mara allowed herself a rare smile. In the heart of what everyone else called failure, humans had found their strength. And that was only the beginning. The salvage yard, once an unremarkable patch of derelicts and rust, was no longer stationary. It had become a nucleus of human expansion. Ships that had crawled from the piles of metal now moved in coordinated yet unpredictable patterns, forming a network that confounded the galaxy's most advanced navigational arrays. Humans had learned to think like the universe itself, chaotic, adaptive, and unstoppable. Mara watched from the bridge of the freighter that had once been buried under a collapsed mining barge, now gleaming with jury-rigged antennas and weapon emplacements scavenged from a dozen other vessels. She wasn't commanding a fleet in the traditional sense. She was orchestrating a living organism made of metal, energy, and human audacity. The first real test came from the edge of the sector. A coalition of alien traders, smugglers, and opportunistic raiders had caught wind of the humans' activity. To them, the worst salvage yard in the galaxy had no strategic value, until the freighters began leaving with cargo that defied their expectations. One by one, human ships were intercepted. The aliens expected easy victories: rusty hulls, misaligned weapons, crews untrained in proper tactics. They were wrong. Each encounter revealed the terrifying advantage humans held: improvisation. Hull plating welded on in haphazard patterns absorbed blasts that should have shredded it. Weapons jury-rigged from incompatible systems fired with deadly efficiency, and the pilots themselves, unbound by doctrine, acted unpredictably, improvising maneuvers no alien training could anticipate. Core had transformed the yard into a mobile arsenal. Storage bays once filled with abandoned machinery now held cache after cache of weapons, energy cells, and improvised drones. Some were crude, but effectiveness was measured not in elegance, but in result. Mara watched as an old reconnaissance drone, barely functioning, was retrofitted with micromissiles and AI-guided targeting stolen from a derelict alien freighter. It zipped into the first skirmish, causing chaos among the attackers as if the universe itself had decided to intervene. The alien observers were forced to acknowledge a painful truth. Humans did not follow patterns. They created them on the fly. They adapted faster than sensors could track. They turned scrap into supremacy. It wasn't just military applications. Mara encouraged the crew to think beyond conventional logic. Abandoned stations and wrecked cargo ships were being converted into mobile cities, floating fortresses that could provide supplies, weapons, and shelter to ships too damaged to continue. A freighter whose hull had been chewed by plasma fire was transformed into a hospital, its medical bay scavenged from broken drones, its energy systems patched with power cores from 3 separate ships. Another, stripped of useless armor, became a command hub, capable of coordinating hundreds of vessels in real time. Where the aliens saw disorganized debris, Mara saw the seeds of an empire built on improvisation, resilience, and relentless curiosity. Then came the first major test. The alien coalition returned, larger this time, determined to dismantle the human operations before they could expand further. Mara had anticipated the attack. She had not only prepared the yard, but the surrounding sectors, converting wreckage into hazards, booby-trapped paths, and emergency fallback stations. When the alien fleet entered the sector, sensors picked up strange energy readings from multiple points, each inconsistent, each impossible to catalog. Mara's fleet did not meet them head-on. Instead, it moved like a shadow, dispersing through the derelicts, activating improvised drones, igniting energy traps, and striking where the aliens least expected. Ships that had been considered junk moments before suddenly erupted with firepower, weaponized salvage tearing through formations that should have annihilated them. The battle was chaos in motion. Core's engineering genius showed as freighters transformed mid-flight, panels shifting to deflect attacks, engines rerouted to provide sudden bursts of speed, weapon emplacements rotating on makeshift turrets. Mara herself piloted the freighter that first lifted from the yard, weaving between debris fields as derelict drones exploded in brilliant flashes, each explosion a carefully calculated risk. "If it doesn't explode, it works better than expected," she muttered, repeating the mantra that had kept them alive so far. The aliens began to understand the terrifying truth. Humans did not fight according to logic. They fought according to possibility. Every failure was an experiment, every explosion a lesson, every victory improvised on the spot. By the end of the engagement, the alien coalition was retreating, stunned not just by the human fleet's resilience, but the intelligence and creativity behind it. Mara surveyed the aftermath. Derelict ships that had once been abandoned were now operational, some heavily armed, some converted into transport and supply hubs, all linked by a network of improvised logistics that no alien intelligence had anticipated. The humans had turned what should have been a defensive struggle into an opportunity to expand their reach. Every attack revealed a new method of adaptation. Every encounter strengthened the fleet. What began as the worst salvage yard in the galaxy had become the backbone of a deadly human network, capable of supplying not only ships, but the ingenuity that fueled their unstoppable expansion. The aliens, forced to reassess, realized too late that human creativity was not a single-point vulnerability. They were not predictable, and therefore they could not be contained. Imara initiated the next phase, connecting other salvage sites across the sector, converting derelicts into relay stations, energy depots, and mobile fortresses. Human crews, trained to think in terms of potential rather than protocol, moved quickly, scavenging from every available source. They did not just repair, they upgraded, combined, and repurposed, converting the galaxy's refuse into the instruments of their rising power. It was during these expansions that humans first began experimenting with scale. Small freighters became floating communities. Abandoned battle stations were reactivated, not for war, but for industry. The worst salvage yard was no longer a yard, it was a hub, a command center, and a proving ground. Mara's vision was taking shape, a living testament to the power of improvisation. Humans did not wait for resources, they created them. They did not wait for permission, they acted. And when the aliens arrived, expecting easy prey, they found themselves facing not just ships, but a philosophy: survival through ingenuity, dominance through adaptability, and expansion through relentless human will. Night fell over the sector, and the salvage yard glowed like a constellation of human ingenuity. Fires from welding arcs illuminated the twisted hulls, showing the galaxy that where others saw failure, humans saw opportunity. Mara walked among her crew, each one busy converting wrecks into the next wave of ships or supply hubs. Kor grinned at Mara. "They still don't understand," he said. "They'll never understand." Mara nodded. She didn't need to explain. The lesson was written in fire, metal, and smoke. Humans thrived where others saw nothing, and as long as there were wrecks to reclaim and derelicts to repurpose, the galaxy would not stop them. Above, alien scouts recorded the transformation, marking the humans as an anomaly, a variable outside all prediction models. They reported, "They improvise, they adapt, they weaponize what should be inert, they survive." But the words carried no understanding. The humans were already moving forward, preparing the next stage of their expansion, a network not just of ships, but mobile cities, weaponized stations, and supply hubs that would allow them to operate anywhere at any time. The worst salvage yard in the galaxy had become the first link of a chain that would stretch across sectors, a symbol of what the aliens could not anticipate. Humans were unstoppable, not because they were strongest, but because they refused to follow rules, and in chaos, they found opportunity. And that was only the beginning. The galaxy had yet to see the full extent of human improvisation. The human presence in Sector 9X had evolved from a salvage yard into a sprawling constellation of mobile supply hubs, fortified stations, and patched-together freighters that defied every alien classification. But humans were not content with merely recycling what the galaxy had discarded. They wanted more. They wanted power. And for that, they needed alien technology. The first encounter was accidental, yet serendipitous. Mars' fleet had been scouring a derelict asteroid belt, recovering what appeared to be old mining vessels, when one of the team stumbled across a wrecked alien warship. Its hull bore the scars of centuries-old battles, yet the core systems remained intact, emitting faint energy signatures that no human had ever seen. The crew gawked at it, but Mara's eyes narrowed in understanding. "This is what we've been looking for," she said. To every alien, this ship was a relic. Too old, too damaged, too mysterious to bother with. To humans, it was raw potential. Core led the boarding team, crawling through the fractured hull, analyzing the alien circuitry and noting every module that could be salvaged, repurposed, or improved. Humans did not fear alien design. They dissected it, merged it with their own crude yet effective systems, and improved it in ways the original designers would never have imagined. Shield emitters were stripped from their mounts and installed on freighters. Weapon arrays were scavenged, modified, and reconfigured to interface with human power cores. The process was messy, dangerous, and entirely human, but it worked. If it didn't explode, it worked better than expected. Once integrated, these hybrid ships became a revelation. Human crews piloted vessels that were part scavenged freighter, part alien warship, with unexpected synergy. Hulls that had once been considered weak became nearly invulnerable when reinforced with alien alloys. Engines scavenged from derelicts provided unpredictable bursts of speed, making it impossible for enemies to track them. Even AI systems recovered from derelicts were hacked, reprogrammed, and merged with human logic protocols, producing adaptive intelligence that could anticipate alien maneuvers. For the first time, humans were not only surviving, they were creating technology that surpassed what their opponents thought possible. The aliens noticed immediately. What they had dismissed as chaotic scavenging was now turning into strategic superiority. Mara's fleet was no longer a collection of patched-together ships. It was an unpredictable force, capable of rapid adaptation. And as the humans began to consolidate these hybrid ships into their expanding network, the first organized counteroffensive arrived. A coalition of alien forces combining multiple species and military doctrines converged on Sector 9X, confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm the humans. They had learned nothing from the previous skirmishes. The ensuing battle was a masterclass in improvisation. Mara deployed ships from behind asteroid fields, using wreckage to create choke points and ambush zones. Hybrid vessels struck from angles the aliens could not predict, their weaponry firing in sequences no alien algorithm could anticipate. Energy traps improvised from scavenged cores exploded in synchronized chaos, damaging enemy ships and creating temporary shields for human freighters. Every mistake by the aliens was exploited. Every unexpected reaction by the humans became a new tactic. For the first time, Mara allowed herself a grim smile. The galaxy had underestimated humans again, and this time, the consequences were devastating. By the battle's end, the alien coalition was shattered, their retreat forced not by superior firepower, but by superior ingenuity. Mara's crew salvaged what remained, repurposing the wreckage almost immediately. Even in the chaos of combat, humans were thinking ahead, converting destroyed vessels into mobile supply nodes, weapon platforms, or drone launchers. Every scrap had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. Where the aliens saw failure, humans saw opportunity. But the success brought new challenges. The sector was now a beacon, a target for every opportunistic faction in the galaxy. Mara knew they could not rely solely on improvisation. They needed structure within their chaos, coordination without losing creativity. So she established a central command hub aboard a reconstructed alien station, linking every salvage yard, mobile city, and hybrid vessel in a network of communication and logistics. The station itself was a marvel, patched together from derelict alien modules, human freighters, and scavenged tech. It pulsed with energy that was as unpredictable as it was powerful. Every crew member, from engineers to pilots, understood the philosophy: adapt, improvise, and never stop moving. As the humans consolidated, they began experimenting with more audacious designs. Entire fleets were converted into modular units, capable of breaking apart and reassembling mid-flight to counter specific threats. Weapon systems were cross-wired between ships, creating overlapping fields of fire that made enemy formations impossible to penetrate. Drones and automated units salvaged from countless derelicts were reprogrammed to operate in swarms, controlled by hybrid AI that combined human improvisation with alien logic. Mara watched as the fleet became less a collection of individual ships and more one single adaptive organism. The aliens, observing from a distance, were growing frantic. Their models could not account for human ingenuity. Every strategy they deployed failed, every tactic was countered in unpredictable ways. Mara's hybrid vessels had become a mirror reflecting their own designs, twisted and improved by human hands. Every attack they launched was absorbed, analyzed, and exploited. For the first time in recorded galactic history, humans were not reacting, they were dictating the terms of engagement. Yet Mara knew this was only the beginning. For every victory, new challenges arose. Supply lines had to be maintained, hybrid systems required constant calibration, and enemy factions would continue to adapt. The salvage yard had transformed into something far greater, a proving ground, a laboratory, and the first link in a chain of human-controlled sectors, and Mara knew that the next phase would push them even further, as the humans began to integrate alien technologies not just for survival, but to create ships and stations that could traverse hostile space without limitation. As night fell over the networked fleet, Mara stood on the command deck of the central station, gazing out at the stars. The wrecks below her glowed with energy, the fruits of human ingenuity and audacity. Every ship, every station, every improvised weapon told the same story. Where others saw scrap, humans saw possibility. Where others followed rules, humans created their own. And where the galaxy assumed weakness, humans proved deadly. In the silence of the command deck, Mara whispered a single truth. We don't wait for the universe to. The transformation of the worst salvage yard into a human stronghold had reached a critical threshold. What began as scattered freighters and derelict hulls had become a sprawling network of mobile cities and fortified supply hubs, moving across the sector like a living organism. Mara stayed on the command deck of the central station, observing the synchronized chaos of her fleet. Every ship, every drone, every patched-together weapon system pulsed with a singular purpose: expansion. And now, for the first time, the humans were no longer merely defending, they were taking the fight to the galaxy. The first offensive was audacious. Mara had identified a cluster of unclaimed derelict stations along the sector's edge, each abandoned by alien factions long gone. To anyone else, they were hazards. Empty, rusting shells that posed more risk than reward. To humans, they were opportunity incarnate. Mara ordered her fleet to move in waves, freighters towing derelicts, drones guiding ships through asteroid fields, and hybrid warships providing cover. The aliens observing the operation could not comprehend the coordination. What they saw as chaos was a carefully orchestrated symphony of human improvisation. The derelict stations were reinforced on arrival, engines reactivated, weapons installed, and life support patched together from a dozen incompatible systems. By nightfall, humans had claimed the first set of stations, converting them into forward operating hubs, capable of resupplying ships and coordinating the fleet's next moves. Core, overseeing the engineering teams, marveled at the efficiency. "It's amazing," he said, eyes scanning schematics. "Every part we thought was useless is now critical." Humans thrived on adaptability. Hull panels scavenged from freighters became armor plating for mobile cities. Broken energy cores were integrated into hybrid shields. Discarded alien weapon systems were recalibrated and combined with human tech to produce unpredictable effects in battle. Every salvage mission was a victory, every recovered derelict a seed of domination. Where the galaxy saw failure, humans saw potential and exploited it with ruthless efficiency. The first major engagement of the campaign came sooner than expected. A coalition of alien forces, alarmed by the rapid human expansion, converged on the outermost stations. They assumed that humans scattered across hastily repaired derelicts would crumble under concentrated assault. They were wrong. Mara had anticipated the attack, turning the derelict stations into a labyrinth of traps, weaponized salvage, and hidden ambush points. Hybrid drones swarmed in unexpected vectors, mines disguised as debris detonated to create shockwaves, and human pilots used improvised tactics that made every alien maneuver ineffective. The battle was chaotic, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective. One derelict, barely large enough to hold a small crew, became a fortress in the hands of human engineers. Weapon turrets scavenged from 3 different alien species were integrated with human targeting algorithms and energy cores, creating overlapping fields of fire that shredded enemy formations. Mara's fleet did not fight conventionally. They moved as an organism, striking, retreating, reassembling, and striking again in patterns no alien intelligence could predict. By the end of the battle, the coalition forces were routed, their retreat chaotic and incomplete, leaving wreckage that humans salvaged immediately to reinforce their forward stations. The victory was not just tactical, it was philosophical. Marin knew that the true strength of humans lay not in numbers or firepower, but in adaptability, creativity, and a willingness to exploit every opportunity. While the aliens relied on doctrine, humans relied on ingenuity. While they feared failure, humans thrived in it. Every explosion, every structural collapse, every improvised repair reinforced the truth. Chaos was not weakness, it was strength. With the sector increasingly under human control, Mara turned her attention to logistics. Mobile cities, vast repurposed freighters interconnected with towing ships and derelict stations, became supply hubs capable of sustaining operations far from the salvage yard. Each city was a marvel of improvisation, patched hulls reinforced with alien alloys, energy grids powered by scavenged cores, and weapons salvaged, upgraded, and recombined into unpredictable arrays. Humans lived, worked, and fought in these moving fortresses, turning abandoned metal into thriving hubs of innovation and power. As the network expanded, aliens struggled to contain it. Their attacks, once sporadic and cautious, became increasingly desperate. Hybrid vessels combined with mobile cities and weaponized derelicts proved unstoppable. Even the most sophisticated alien weaponry failed against human improvisation. Hulls that should have collapsed with a single blast held firm under fire. Engines, bought destroyed, powered entire stations through complex maneuvers, and weapon systems scavenged and repurposed struck with precision